Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast. Today is August 9th, 2017. And again, shout out to my brother for his birthday. And I want to share some good news with you. And I know it's personal, but it's still quite delightful. My daughter gave birth to a son on August 4th. I beg your pardon, on August 3rd. And it just was a pretty exciting day for us. He came pretty quickly, within 4 hours. She gives birth pretty easily, so thank God for that. Anyways, we do not have a guest here today. And in fact, we don't have a guest lined up for tomorrow or Monday. August is the month where everyone goes on vacation. So I'm just going to give you the heads up. There's some blank days in this day. That means that people can call in if they want. So let me give you the number. It's 718-717-8106. And please call in if you feel like it. Otherwise, I'm going to be reporting to you on some stories about nuclear stuff that I think is super important. And I don't know how many of you have heard this among all the hoopla of the idiot in chief threatening he's acting just like Kim Jong-un, as a matter of fact. They're two peas in a pod. But I'm not going to discuss that as much as I possibly can. I hope I won't get to. I do have a story on that, but I want to talk to you about some other stuff. I guess, items of interest, as they call them. This biggest story that I think is freaking a lot of people out is about the Hanford workers. On June 8th, when they had that big tunnel collapse and they evacuated. It was the first time they ever evacuated. They said up to 2,000 people. People that were working on the site said it had to have been more like, I don't know, Heidi Lambert said 9,000, but I've heard, other stories that it's like 5 to 7. So somewhere it's at least double of what they said they evacuated, that's for sure. And so here we go. Now keep that in mind, because this story that was uncovered by King 5 says tests show Hanford workers inhaled radioactive plutonium. That's right. And of course we knew that had to have happened because those tunnels were filled with plutonium. And they just poured people in there to try to cover up that hole. So we know they did. This is a story written on August 3rd, 2017 by Susanna Frame of King 5. Susanna Frame is our hero. She is the one reporter who gets the stories through. I do not know how she does it, but she does. Nobody picks up her stories across the country, or very few, and if they do, they cherry pick the information. So listen to this. On June 8th, approximately 350 Hanford workers were ordered to, quote, take cover, unquote, after alarms designed to detect elevated levels of airborne radioactive contamination went off. It was quickly determined that radioactive particles had been swept out of a containment zone at the plutonium finishing plant demolition site. The work is considered the most hazardous demolition project on the entire nuclear reservation. I don't know. That really makes me angry. They call this now a nuclear reservation. It used to be an Indian reservation, a Native American reservation, until they kicked the people off of there. It was somebody else's really home. At the time, Hanford officials called the safety measure precautionary. Officials from the U.S. Department of Energy, which owns Hanford, and the contractor in charge of the demolition, CH2M Hill, downplayed the seriousness of the event with statements including, "It appeared workers were not at risk. The alarm went off in a containment where contamination is expected, and there is no evidence radioactive particles had been inhaled by anyone." The King 5 investigators have discovered those statements are incorrect. You know what I would say? I would say that those statements are straight up lies, because they are nuclear liars. That's all they can do. If you get behind nuclear, you are a liar. An internal CH2M Hill email sent to their employees on July 21st was obtained by King. It states that 301 test kits have been issued to employees, and the first 65 workers tested, a, quote, small number of employees, unquote, showed positive results for internal exposure by radioactive plutonium. Now, plutonium is not that harmful if it's external, but if it's inhaled, it's deadly. And listen to this, what she says. The first 65 workers tested, so they give out 301 tests. The first 65 that went in to get tested, all of them tested positive. You know what that means for the rest of them? We're not going to hear about the rest of them. Sources tell King the small number of employees is 12. 12 people out of 65 is 20%. Still outstanding are 236 tests. Oh, okay, I beg your pardon. So I think this is what they're saying. I think I misread this. They tested the first 65 workers, and 12 out of the first 65 tested positive. There are still 236 tests. A communication specialist with CH2M Hill sent a statement that more positive results are expected. We expect additional positive results because analytical tests like a bioassay can detect radiological contaminations at levels far lower than what the field monitoring can detect, said Destry Henderson of CH2M Hill Plateau Remediation Company. CH2M Hill Plateau Remediation Company. We'll have to look into see who owns them. Several veteran Hanford workers were surprised by the number of people with internal contamination from a single event. I've worked there for 27 years, and I've never seen this many people contaminated internally, said one employee with radiation expertise who did not want to be identified. When I first heard the number, I couldn't believe it because it's just something that the Hanford workers take pride in, that we don't get contaminated and this doesn't happen. They work very hard at not getting contaminated and especially getting an internal contamination. So when I heard that so many, that's just amazing, said Mike Geffrey, who retired from Hanford after working from the site for 26 years. In 36 years, I've not seen this many people with internal exposure, said another Hanford worker who wished to remain anonymous. It's a monstrous deal, and the workers know it, and they don't want to say anything. They're afraid. Todd Sutherland, CH2M Hill's PFP Safety, Health, and RADCON Director, wrote in the July 21st email that tests showed a very small dose of radiation had been detected in the employees. A dose of less than or equal to 1 millirem, wrote Sutherland. At the end of 50 years, a person with a dose of 1 millirem would receive a dose equivalent to less than a standard chest X-ray. A standard chest X-ray is about 10 millirem. When, quote, if you look at what the exposure was, it equates to approximately what a chest X-ray would be, or a little less than that, or a flight to Washington, D.C., unquote, said Doug Shoup, the U.S. Department of Energy's Richland Operation Manager. So maybe we should call him and give him a little bit of education about plutonium. Wow. Several Hanford workers and 4 radiation experts consulted by King 5 said the messaging from the contractor and the DOE is misleading and doesn't explain the actual danger to employees. There's no safe amount of plutonium you can inhale or ingest, said Dr. Marco Koltofen of Nuclear Science and Engineering Project, Department of Physics, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. If you fly from Seattle to D.C., you're in the air for 6 hours and you're done. With plutonium, it is in your body for days, months, or even years. A millionth of a gram of plutonium has a measurable risk of causing a lethal lung cancer, said Koltofen. Hanford workers said they are not concerned about the small dose of radiation detected, but about the contamination inside the body from plutonium. All radiation is not created equal. Radiation from an X-ray, air flight, or a microwave are different and far less dangerous types than the kind emitted by plutonium inside the body. Unlike X-rays, air travel, or microphones, plutonium emits alpha radiation, which is the most destructive type to inhale or ingest. Alpha particles damage or destroy DNA and can cause cancer, said Koltofen. If I get a chest X-ray or a CT scan, that's a different type of radiation, said Dr. Erica Liebelt, Medical and Executive Director of the Washington Poison Center. It's pretty interesting. These people's risk could be quite low because the number is very, very small. But you have concerns about alpha radiation disrupting the cells and causing genetic disruption in the cells and cellular damage. And that's what causes the increased risk for cancers in 3 organs, lungs, liver, and bone, said Liebelt, who is also a certified toxicologist. You know, all this information was confirmed long ago, folks. It's not a matter of what it causes. It's the lying. It's the lying. Those are not just not correct statements. Those are lying. Let me get back to this story. This is not the first breach of containment of radioactive contaminants from the PFP demolition project. In January, work was halted after a spread of radioactive contamination was discovered outside the plant. After that event, CH2M Hill reported that nasal smears taken from the workers immediately following the incidents found no evidence of inhaled contamination. These people are freaking murderers if that's what they're taking samples of. Medical experts said nasal smears are one of the best diagnostic procedures to check for contamination. Really? In the June incident, the contractor did not administer those tests. When King 5 asked CH2M Hill why they skipped the step, the spokesperson did not answer. With a minimum of 2 accidents involving the spread of radioactive plutonium at the demolition project that began in November, we've had 2 serious accidents. Site workers who spoke with King are worried that appropriate controls are not in place to keep them safe. You think? They should never have this many people exposed. And what happens the next time around, said a veteran worker who did not want to be identified for fear of retaliation. A lot of people are concerned that they will have another contamination spread, and it may cause damage to the environment and to people. CH2M Hill said they have increased safety measures to prevent another accident. Really, I wonder what that is. After June 8th, we worked with the employees involved, technical staff, radiological experts, engineers, and others to evaluate the incident and identify actions that can be taken to reduce the likelihood of recurrence, including adding additional dust suppression capability. That means more water, spraying it down more often. Implementing negative ventilation on the canyon during demolition. Implementing negative ventilation. Wow, they're just now starting it. And reducing the proximity of nearby employees to the canyon, said Henderson. It is not clear why many of the workers near the demolition project on June 8th were not wearing full respiratory protection. Some longtime workers said utilizing the gear is expensive, slows down the work, and could jeopardize CH2M Hill finishing the demolition on time. The contractor is under pressure to finish by September 30th, as per a legally binding agreement with the state of Washington. It's money in their pockets and a feather in their cap to get the job done. So they'll get it done, but at what expense, said one experienced Hanford worker who did not want to be identified. Give me a break, dude. You work at Hanford. You're shocked. So quit your job. The CH2M Hill statement sent to King underscored their position that workers faced little risk from exposures. The results received show a very low internal contamination dose that is significantly less than a typical X-ray, wrote Henderson. During the event, field monitoring showed levels of contamination not considered harmful. We expect any future positive tests also not to be harmful. Oh, great. So they're going to test these people for contamination, and then they'll say, yeah, but you're not going to get sick from it. Yeah, you got exposed, but don't worry, it's not going to be harmful to you. It's misleading, and that's bullshit, ... But she said bullshit. That just pisses me off that they even imply that. It's not like getting an X-ray, said Geoffrey. That's an insult to the people that work there. Why do you think all of those years of radiation training was for? For me to be stupid now? Yeah, it makes me mad. Boy, I agree with him. For 40 years, plutonium buttons for nuclear warheads were manufactured inside the PFP. Plutonium buttons for nuclear warheads. That's funny that they call it a button for nuclear warheads. Do they just cap it on or what? Hanford is not a nuclear power plant. It is a 586 square mile federally owned decommissioned nuclear weapons facility near Richland. From 1943 to 1988, oh my God, that long? From 1943 to 1988, workers produced plutonium in the secret Manhattan Project, and then to bolster the country's nuclear stockpile through the Cold War. Since 1988, Hanford has been a nuclear cleanup site only. Hanford is considered the most contaminated place in the Western Hemisphere. That is sickening. That is really sickening. I wonder if Hanford is even more contaminated than Fukushima. I bet you it is. All of those years of radioactive contamination, of just let's produce plutonium. That is unbelievable. I had no idea. What's that? 45 years of nonstop plutonium production? And we wonder why Trump is so eager to push the button and say, yes, he wants to see it go kablooey. Lord. Hold on just a second. Sorry about that. So the phone number, if you guys want to call in, is 717-8106. Otherwise, and then here's this story. More young people dying of colon cancer, and researchers don't know why. Really? This is unbelievable. They've seen that it's gone up over the decades. And what are they blaming? They are blaming people's eating habits. They're not talking about Fukushima. They're not talking about these nuclear disasters, the leaking nuclear power plants, the tritium going into the water. None of that. The nitrates, the phosphates. But it is increasing, right? And this is the weird part. Mortality rates from colorectal cancer in adults from age 20 to 54 declined overall. 6.3 per 100,000 in 1973 to 3.9 in 2004. After that, it starts increasing. After 2004, death rates began to increase slightly each year, reaching 4.3 per 100 in 2014. I made an effort to try to find that graph, and all I could find was a little graph. I'm going to go online and look through the school library to see if I can find this study. I want to see if it started to increase after 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl and what those rates look like also. So, and speaking of the predator in chief, this is an op-ed from the Japan Times. Where is it from? Oh, I beg your pardon. It's the California edition of the U.S. and World Report. It's an op-ed. It says 72 years after the bombing of Nagasaki, there are 15,000 nuclear weapons in the world. We need 15,000 weapons. That's a completely outrageous. Well, what do we expect? We were doing what? 1943 to 1988, we were building weapons, right? They didn't just produce the plutonium and have it sit around in big casts. They were doing something with that plutonium. And that's called building bombs, baby. 15,000 of them. Mission accomplished. That really makes me angry. But I'm not going to be angry. This is the whole thing about this idea about living beyond our immediate vision of what we think we can see. When we recognize that there's beings all around us, that we're living in a different universe. This isn't the only existence there is. There are other levels of awareness in the universe. And when you begin to realize that, you're like, okay, just like Trump world, these guys, they want us to be living in fear. They really want us to oh my God, I'm so afraid we're going to go to war. Whatever, dude, you're going to do what you're going to do. And if we actually keep our vibrations and our thoughts focused on love, healing the planet, and just do what we normally do, I honestly believe that we will come across, and I believe that we have, through phytoremediation, we can actually turn the microbes around. I mean, with the microbes, we can actually change the harm that they're causing us. There's probably going to have to be other methods and ways that we can implement, but I think if we just keep our energy high and refuse to play into this, but that does not mean you don't pay attention to it. 72 years after the bombing of Nagasaki, there are 15,000 nuclear weapons in the world. Why are there 15,000? I thought we had this thing where we were taking our weapons apart. So I wonder if they're going to tell us. I don't want to go through the whole thing. I wonder if they're going to tell us where all these weapons are. Okay, so let's hear this. I'm going to cut right through the middle of this because it takes us through how we got to the part of the war and what happened after all of that. But this is interesting, the thing that it says. After 9 months, pregnant women whose fetuses had been exposed in uterus suffered spontaneous abortion, stillbirth, and infant deaths. Newborns developed physical and mental disabilities. Interesting to call it that. Physical and mental disabilities. Scientists are still studying second and third generation hibakusha. And the hibakusha is the word for the people who were exposed. That's what they give themselves. atomic bomb affected people. So they're testing second and third generation for genetic effects passed down from parents and reminding us how much we still don't know about the insidious nature of radiation exposure on the human body. Yes, that's actually very true. So, 15,000 and, do we have any options on, if you build them, they will come, right? So I think that Trump does not want to lose his opportunity. And I think that's what yesterday's insane rhetoric of inciting war. But listen to this. Oh, my God, it gets better. This is The American Conservative by Rod Dreher, pastor. God blesses Trump's nuclear war. What the? This is where the F word, I've actually stopped trying to, making an effort to not cuss. Let me say not try, but I'm making an effort to not cuss because of kepw.org. They want to have my radio show on there, and they're an FM station. So no cussy on the FMs. So hold on just one second. Okay, so this article has a picture of a church. Look like it's all been burnt down. Looks like it's been through nuclear disaster with an orange sky in the background. That looks horrible. Actually, that orange sky looks exactly like what I dreamt about the night that I thought I saw the mountains on fire, and that's when I discovered Fukushima. So this says, Robert Dreyfus, President Trump's court pastor, hits bottom and digs. I don't know what this means. Okay. When it comes to how we should deal with the evildoers, the Bible in the book of Romans is very clear. God has endowed rulers full power to use whatever means necessary, including war, to stop evil. Oh, this is Robert Jeffers is Trump's court pastor. We don't have a court. So I don't understand. I'm a little bit offended by that, to be honest, that he even says that. So that's who that is. Robert Jeffers, President Trump's court pastor, hits bottom and digs. Okay, that's what he's saying. People really need to go to journalism school. When it comes to how we should deal with the evildoers, the Bible in the book of Romans is very clear. I wanted to read this again. God has endowed rulers full power to use whatever means necessary, including war, to stop evil. In the case of North Korea, God has given Trump, God told him, God has given Trump authority to take out Kim Jong-un. I am heartened to see that our president, contrary to what we've seen with past administrations, who have taken at best a sheepish stance towards dictators and oppressors, will not tolerate any threat against the American people. When President Trump draws a red line, he will not erase it, move it, or back away from it. Thank God for a president who is serious about protecting our country. Oh, I see. So this is what he says. This is obscene. This is the writer. God forbid that we should all have to go to war, much less a nuclear war. This would be catastrophic for humanity. But Jeffries ought to be praying out against such a thing, not goading it on. Says evangelical writer Joe Carter. I could be wrong, but when I suspect there are 0 evangelical pastors in North Korea encouraging their country's leaders to start a nuclear war. Yeah, probably not. This is the thing. This whole thing of, I imagine there are some people who heard that and actually believed that that was the right thing, that the reason that we have Kim Jong-un is because our country has been really weak with them. The thing to understand about North Korea, South Korea is that they're still at war. They have not signed a peace treaty. That's why Kim Jong-un is building up his war machine. He's still at war with South Korea. I mean, this is really the weird part about the way the whole thing works. And I mean, these sanctions that they're doing are going to cost their country millions of dollars. And it's not like they care about their people. What they care about is their military machine. And they are going to take that as a direct threat. And, Trump has no idea. He can't wait to start dropping one of those 15,000 bombs that we have stockpiled up. I mean, he has no idea. And, I'm actually wondering if they're willing to use like the old bombs just to get rid of them so they can build up a new arsenal. I mean, you can't keep building bombs and not using them. I mean, I know they have a long half-life, but, it does take upkeep and, things have to happen. I cannot believe this. In the case of North Korea, God has given Trump authority to take out Kim Jong-un. Whose God has given him authority to take out Kim Jong-un? Nobody has the authority to take out anyone. Like, that is so un-American. These people are such traitors and treasonous. I just can't believe it. Okay, so I'm going to swing us back over to the nuclear issues and forget about the stupid people that are like over there deciding that they're going to, they have the moral authority to destroy the planet. Let's just remember that. No, they don't. Actually, they don't have the moral authority to destroy the planet. And I hope that my listeners are people that are figuring out ways that they can improve their own lives, keep their vibrations high, keep their energy high, and still poke these guys in the eye and push our leaders and the people who have, our leaders. They're not really leaders. What they are is administrators. Our congressmen and senators are not leaders. They're sort of administrators. They're the ones with the purse strings. They're coming up with the ideas of how we can spend our money. They're supposed to be doing it, not the corporations, which is why we're so off track. So I wanted to talk about this, since we're talking about spending our tax dollars. Nuclear Agency begins work to consider Yucca Mountain site, August 8, 2017. Now, I honestly can say I do not know enough about the Yucca Mountain site. The only thing I know is that it has not been built. And I have heard that the reason it hasn't been built is if there's a river, it goes down to the groundwater. So that could be entirely wrong also. But this comes from the Star Tribune. And who was it written by? Matthew Daly from the Associated Press. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is taking steps to review the planned revival of the long-dormant nuclear waste dump at Nevada's Yucca Mountain. The Nuclear Agency said Tuesday it will spend up to $110,000 from its current budget to gather documents and other information about the Yucca Mountain site, which the Obama administration abandoned in 2010. The Trump administration has begun steps to revive the repository site amid bipartisan opposition from Nevada lawmakers. The Nuclear Agency said its preliminary activities will enable efficient, informed decisions as officials prepare to consider an expected Energy Department application to store spent radioactive fuel from the nation's commercial nuclear fleet at the remote site outside of Las Vegas. Yeah, so we're going to intentionally destroy everything in our country with nuclear waste. Let's bring all the nuclear waste that's now east of the Mississippi and that way. We're just going to bring it all over here so that we have it spread everywhere. I guess having the worst plutonium site on the planet and the most contaminated site on the planet at Hanford isn't enough. Senator Dean Heller, a Republican seen among the GOP's most vulnerable incumbents in 2018, which I don't think he is going to be vulnerable. I don't think so. Called the NRC's actions irresponsible and yet another waste of taxpayer money on a failed project that has already cost the federal government billions of dollars over the past 30 years. Democratic Rep. Dina Titus, a possible state challenger next year, blasted the NRC's action as a way for the Trump administration to stack the deck against Nevada and revive the unworkable Yucca scheme. Wow. The money being spent by the NRC is the tip of the iceberg in a project that could cost ratepayers billions of dollars, she said. Ratepayers. The Energy Department has dismantled much of its infrastructure related to Yucca since 2010, with key personnel retired or at new jobs, and truckloads of related resources and documents moved to facilities across the country. NRC Chairwoman Christina Svinicki said the decision to spend $110,000 in previously appropriated funds was not a resumption of an administrative proceeding suspended by the agency in 2011. Rather, the action launched, quote, appropriate steps to develop the agency's readiness, unquote, to consider the Yucca Mountain project if it proceeds as expected, she said. Svinicki, a Republican, was named NRC chairman by Trump earlier this year and has served on the panel since 2008. The NRC has estimated it would cost at least $330 million to complete a multi-year review of the Yucca Mountain project. Wow. The estimated the cost would be at least $330 million to complete a multi-year review of the Yucca Mountain project. The agency has requested $30 million for Yucca-related costs in the budget year that begins October 1. Let me read that paragraph again. The NRC has estimated it would cost at least $330 million to complete a multi-year review of the Yucca Mountain project. $330 million to complete a multi-year review of the... How much is this thing going to cost us if the review is $330 million, folks? The agency has requested $30 million for Yucca-related costs in the budget year that begins October 10. So my guess is that they are requesting $30 million the first year, multi-year. They're not telling us how many years. Wow. Democrat Jeff Barron, one of the NRC's 3 voting members, said it was premature to restart the Yucca review. While President Trump's budget request includes money to revive Yucca, we have no idea whether Congress will ultimately approve nuclear waste fund monies for this purpose, Barron wrote in a memo to his fellow commissioners. Rather than making predictions about what Congress will choose to do, NRC should await congressional action, he added. Wow. That is, I don't know. Do you guys see that sort of running theme here? Spend now, pay now, deny later. Like, this is just stunning. We have these nuclear... Listen to how big Hanford is. 586 square mile federally owned decommissioned nuclear weapons facility near Richland. 586 square miles. And it is some of the most beautiful land you have ever seen in your life. It's beautiful. And they basically, parts of it is a desert. This is the thing, where they take it all out. Even the desert out there, though, is so beautiful. I mean, it's unbelievable. Let me pull up some more nuclear stories. In case anybody wants to give us a call, let me remind you the number is 718-717-8106. That's 718-717-8106. And if you are connected to me on Skype, my name is Lonnie Clark, Lonnie.Clark7. So you can connect to me that way. And then if you called in, I'd get your Skype number calling in. So I'm going to pull up more nuclear stories because this is sort of fascinating, all the stuff that doesn't happen. I cannot believe that Trump's court pastor. So who is this? This is called the American Conservative. That is really amazing that this guy is shocked. I think this comment by this guy, it's a tweet, this comment in this thing about Trump, Joe Carter, at Joe Carter. It was a tweet, and the guy says, I could be wrong, but I suspect there are 0 evangelical pastors in North Korea encouraging their leaders to start a nuclear war. For me, this whole thing goes back to the idea that I think this is all CIA controlled. I mean, the CIA budget is basically unbudgeted. There is no budget. They have unlimited funds anytime they want. We know that they sold Donald Trump his very first property at a magnificent deal right after the economy collapsed. And I'm not saying that Trump is a CIA asset, but I will tell you what, he's the kind of guy who is, quote, loyal to his, quote, friends. And Kim Jong-un for sure is loyal to his friends and the whole North Korean gang of criminals that the CIA continues to sponsor. I think that this whole thing is just a little show. That's all. I mean, I hope it's a show. Let's just put it to you that way. Like, this is all about us. It makes me wonder, like, what we're not looking at right now, which is probably the unfolding story about the absolute corruption of President Trump. Or as I call him, Traitor Trump. Because that's what I think he is. I think we have an unprecedented event in our country where we have the biggest traitor we've ever seen active in the White House right before our very eyes. And I am blown away that people say that, you know, finally we have a guy who's willing to stand up and be tough and he's not going to be pushed around. The guy is a straight up abuser. He's abused his own children publicly, his adult children publicly, to grandiose himself and his name. I mean, what he has done to his son Don, what he has done to Ivanka is disgusting. So here is an article that I pulled up. Where is this from? Green Tech Media, and the date of this article is August 9th, 2017. And it says, can we make nuclear power great again? I didn't know it was ever great. That's what made me pull this up. So this really does blow me away. This podcast is brought to you by Wonder Capital, an award-winning investment platform that allows you to invest directly in solar projects and earn up to 8.5% annually. WonderCapital.com. So, a Wood Mackenzie business. Okay, so I have this is a transcript from a podcast, and it's not very long. There's actually a podcast. It's 58 minutes and 20 seconds. So let's just get to this little bit brief thing that they have allowed us to read here. In this week's Interchange, we look to apply lessons about innovations from other industries to advance nuclear. Plus, we look at how soon batteries will start to put out economic pressure on gas-fired power plants. Batteries. That nuclear revival that many people hope for, it's not looking so good. The latest blow came last week when 2 South Carolina utilities backed away from a half-completed nuclear project in the state after already having spent $9 billion. Nuclear is struggling, particularly in the United States. In the second half of the show, we'll talk to Jessica Lovering, the director of the Energy of Breakthrough Institute, about how to rethink nuclear. What can we learn from other industries in order to foster innovation, advance nuclear technologies, and push the industry to evolve faster? Oh my God. You know, this is the thing. We'll start the show with our attention to natural gas, an abundant resource coincidentally responsible for eroding the economics of nuclear in America. So they're not talking about the health risks of what nuclear does. They're just talking about the business of nuclear. I mean, Hanford workers, CH2M2, these people are completely lying about the exposure that these people are getting. You think they're lying about anything else? There's an article I read on my YouTube channel. It's not an article. It is a scientific review that I found in 2000, I think it was 13. It was written in 2013. I think I found it in 15. And it's talks about this. It's a scientific review of 6 scientists in Spain who went out and set about to look at the safety of the International Atomic Energy Safety Culture, which is the model used in every private nuclear facility on the planet. It's used at every nuclear plant, every nuclear making facility, any place they put it. It's outside of the military, but any other use, definitely. They found that it had never been tested. There were 8 standards that the IAEA set up on paper on how we're going to consider this a safety culture. Only when they did test it, they found a nuclear power plant in Spain willing to put the safety culture, to the test. They said, okay, so here's these 8 things. And I think they took a period of 4 months or 6 months. It was 6 months where they tested to see if any of these things in advance, how many of these safety culture things that were required by the IAEA were actually either in force or easily implemented if they weren't in force, because they found that they were really not even in force. So they said, okay, let's put them to force and let's see how well they work. They only passed in one area by 50%. All the other 7 they failed. So there is no safety culture model. It's like in Hanford, they're wondering why they can't. They have a financial incentive to get paid illegally. It's not clear why many of the workers near the demolition plant on June 8th were not wearing full respiratory protection. They just had a nuclear collapse. They had a collapse of the plutonium tunnels, and they didn't send the guys out with full protection gear. They were working when there was no, I guess the collapse happened when there was no full protection gear. Some longtime workers said utilizing the gear is expensive, slows down the work, and could jeopardize CH2M Hill finishing the demolition on time. That is such an outrageous concept that we're going to get it done and we'll just let the workers die if anything happens to them. No. This is why people don't like to talk about this, because it really is hard to keep your vibration high. Like, you just like, really, what are you going to do? This is our reality. This is the hard part about our reality, folks, is that we don't really, this is why a lot of people just can't deal with it. We don't have a lot of options. There is no option. So it's kind of like, I don't know if many of you have heard of Guy McPherson. And he has a website. You can Google him. And hold on, I'm trying to put in this CH2M2 people. I want to see who they are. Guy McPherson basically says we're super screwed. Life on this planet isn't going to happen for more than 50 more years. So you might as well just enjoy your life. Wow, that's pretty intense. So here we are at CH2M Home. Let's click on them and let's go look at who we are in our career and who we are. Let's see who we are. Who are we? Jacqueline Heinemann, P-E-L-E-E-D, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer. We do not want to watch an introduction. What I'd really like to see is not their leadership team. I'd like to see who is in it. $5.2 billion in revenue, 10,000 communities impacted. They work in 50 plus countries. 9 years as one of the 9 years as the I can't even get this out, man. 9 years as one of the world's most ethical companies. Oh my God. That is so annoying. Like, for real. So I wonder who owns these people. They are a private corporation, so I don't believe that they're required to actually tell us who they are. What we do, our people, career investors. Let's see who the investors are. Oh my gosh, that's where the fun comes in, I guess, huh? Oh, come on. Oh, so it's popping up that it's not a secure connection, and it won't let me on there. Wow. I wonder if I can actually figure out a way to get through there. I'm not very good at this, so I guess I'm going to have to do that on my own and get back to you, because I'll have to disable this. I don't know. So it says, so they basically spy on you. When you go in there to look at them, they're going to turn it around and look at you. Anybody looking at them, they're going to look at you. And I guess they feel like they have a right to do that because their CH2M capabilities. I'll bet you 2-1 that these people are owned by Dick Cheney or one of those gang members. My instincts tell me that these people are related to Cheney or Rumsfeld. So let's see. We have about 10 minutes left, folks. The phone number is 718-717-8106. I'm just going to keep digging for stories if nobody calls in, because it's what I do. I'll look for the stories. You know, I can't wait to talk to Larry Bergen again, who should be getting close to having his case settled and those people in his neighborhood settled for his 27-year-long fight to get on disability. That's all he wanted, was to get on disability because he was exposed to uranium in a power plant from the Manhattan Project, which they denied. He's very, very close to the end. He's been away for the summer, and I'll be talking to him, I guess, in the next month or so. So pretty excited to get back into chatting with some of the people that have been out for the summer because so much has happened. I am really curious to talk to Carl Grossman. I hope that I can find him again and get him back on about the Cassini, because the Cassini, let's don't forget, the Cassini is going to crash into Saturn on, I think they said September 15th, with 72 pounds of plutonium. Again, plutonium again. Here we go with the plutonium. I mean, what is it with these lunatics that they feel like they need to send out the most destructive? Who are these people that are running things here now? I mean, it's almost as if they hate life. It's murder, death, kill. To me, I just find it completely shocking. I honestly, I just can't. Oh, yes. Let's get back to I found a Fukushima update. I beg your pardon. And that was the other one. That's what blanked out on me. The IAEA has a news study out, and I am going to just go to ENE News. They'll talk about it. Arnie Gunderson reported on it along with someone else, but I downloaded it. And, you know, the way that the IAEA reports how things are, it's all right there. It's all really clear, but you have to read this big, long report and sift through the information. And I'm going to read the whole report. I downloaded it and I didn't have a chance to highlight the places that I wanted to talk to you about. I'm going to come back to it. But from the Science and Total Environment, again, Dr. Marco Catalfin, Nuclear Science and Engineering Program, Department of Physics, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and Arnie Gunderson, Fair Winds Energy Education, December 17th. So let me see if I can get to the original story. If you go to ENE News, when you see these articles, a lot of this is actually a scientific study. And I don't think they'll show us the whole thing, but I can give you guys the abstract. So this is awesome. This is the title. This is what we call a periodic review. This is in the Science of Total Environment, Volume 607 to 608, December 31st, 2017. No. Oh, the 31st. How can it be December 31st? Pages 1065 and 1072. It can't be December 30. Oh, so that's written wrong. So it's 7917. I'm looking at the actual, what do you call that? The link, the actual citation itself. So this title on this page, that's interesting. I wonder if that was hacked by the stupid nuclear industry, the murderers. Abstract. After the March 11, 2011 nuclear reactor meltdowns of Fukushima Daiichi, 180 samples of Japanese particle matters, dust and surface soils, and 235 similar U.S. and Canadian samples were collected and analyzed subsequently by gamma spectrometry, audio radiography, and scanning electron microscopy with energy dispersive X-ray analysis. Samples were collected and analyzed over a 5-year period from 2011 to 2016. Detectable levels of cesium-134 and cesium-137 were found in 142 of the 180 Japanese particulate matter samples. That's 80%. The median radiocesium specific activity of Japanese particular samples was 3.2 K becquerels Kg minus 1 plus 1 plus or minus 1.8 K becquerel Kg minus 1. Honestly, I'm going to skip these numbers because that stuff, I don't even understand what it means. I mean, I did take it. I have no idea. So I'm going to skip that. The U.S. and Canadian mean and median radiocesium activity levels were, less than 0.03 kBq Kg minus 1. So let's see. So the U.S. and Canadian mean and median radiocesium activity levels were less than 0.03 becquerel. So, and this was 3.2 plus or minus 1.8. So that part I get. So it was like way over. Okay. Cesium-137 and 134 in one dust sample out of 32 collected and 4 soils out of 74. The maximum U.S. Canadian radiocesium particulate matter activity was 0.30 plus or minus 0.10 kBq Kg minus 1. I have no idea what that means, folks. The mean, you know what will probably tell us is this. This is what it says. Is the, oh my gosh, I want to get through this. The skewness was present in both 2011 and 2016 sample sets. 300 individual radioactive hot particles were identified in samples from Japan, composed of 1% or more of the elements cesium, americium, radium, polonium, thorium, tellurium, and strontium. Some particles reach specific activities in the MBQ, I have no idea, backwards UG minus 1 level and higher. I can hear Larry Woods laughing at me now. No cesium-containing hot particles were found in the U.S. sample set. Only naturally occurring radionuclides were found in the particles from the U.S. background samples. Some of the hot particles detected in this study could cause significant radiation exposure to individuals if inhaled. Exposure models ignoring these isolated hot particles would potentially understate human radiation doses. You think? Wow. So Fukushima is steadily spewing out radioactivity. Well, I think tomorrow what I'm going to do, folks, is read the nuclear alerts and see what's happening in the United States. Thank you for joining us here on UCY.TV. We really appreciate your listenership. Please share our station with your friends. Remind them that they have to go to the internet to hear us. And put your courage feet on. Take some action. Keep your vibration high, eh? So because that's how we're going to save ourselves. With love is greater than fear, and happiness is resistance. So it's up to us to take action. Talk to you guys tomorrow.